My property is at the center of a dispute. On one hand, we have a developer who's trying to build his portfolio and continue his American dream. And on the other hand, we have the neighbors, locals, fighting back to preserve their way of life.
Non Apologetic
Nonsense.
This particular dispute is all about a bare lot I own in a city called Alba. So this lot is a corner lot buried way into the city. All of a sudden, someone buys the lot directly to the side of me, right across the street. They start building these quadruplexes. This guy slams 5 quadruplexes on a lot that couldn't be bigger than 0.3 acres. So as you could imagine, this is a very small city this is in. The neighbors aren't happy, right? They're not happy that this little 1-lane road on a sharp curve is now going to house, you got to think they're quadruplexes, so it's 4 living units. I think they're all 300 or 400 square foot, and then each person could have up to 2 cars, right? So if you have 5 of those and they each house 4, you could have up to 40 cars there. So all of a sudden, I get a visit from one of the neighbors. The neighbor informs me of all this. He tells me how unhappy he is. He tells me he's lived there since the 80s, and due to all the people moving in, he wanted to know if I wanted to sell the lot. I told him I might be interested. I told him my price, which wasn't cheap, but wasn't super expensive. It was 5 figures for the lot. He ultimately decided not to buy the lot. He told me the builder did not follow any city codes. He essentially just tied into a water line without approval, which if you're familiar with very small water lines, everyone loses pressure when you do this. Okay, so these people have no pressure. They now have no privacy. It's such a sharp corner that's a 1-lane, but it's meant for 2 vehicles, but it's only wide enough for 1. So they're starting to have accidents, fights. It's low income, so it's bringing the dirt bags out. So I also get informed that the developer's advertising that my lot, the bare lot across the street, is a dog park or will be a dog park in the near future, and it's a place where people could walk their dogs. While that's an annoyance to me, it's not a big deal. This is just a bare lot. If people want to walk their dogs on it, well, so be it. He tries to get me involved in the scenario by riling me up on that. I choose not to get involved. So at this point, I was recovering from a surgery. I did tell him I would go by there, and that if the developer did contact me, which obviously he would, that I would let this guy match the offer. So fast forward a month and a half or so, 2 months, the same neighbor comes back by again. He seems like a good guy. He tells me that he's about to give up. He's lived there for decades. He's about to sell off, pack up, and him and his wife are going to retire elsewhere. He told me that the guy who lost the lot to me is interested in buying it. Now, I was very skeptical of this because the person who lost the lot to me knows exactly what I paid, right? So any amount of profit I'm trying to get, people tend to take that personally. If I was selling them a car, they wouldn't take it personally, but with this lot. So this gentleman calls me, tells me, oh, this is his family home. It was an accident. It got set to the sale. Now, I don't quite understand how it's an accident that you don't pay property taxes for 3 years. You let it get auctioned off. And after it's auctioned, you have a complete year that you can pay me back plus 10%, and you still get your property back. So I don't quite understand how it's a mistake. I also don't understand how, if you don't have money to pay property taxes, you're going to be able to pay me for the lot. So ultimately, I told him the number, and I don't want to say the number, but like I say, it was 5 figures. He was not happy about that. A lot of, God damn it, that lot ain't worth that at all. I ain't paying that. And I'm like, well, have yourself a good day. Now I start thinking, and I know that developer's going to want my lot, right? He's bought that lot. He's built those 4 or 5 quadruplexes on. He's bought a lot catty corner. He's bought another lot down the road. I live in the same area. I just live 5 minutes away from there, and I really don't want to add to the gentrification of my area, which is essentially what would happen. I can't blame the developer. You got to make money. You got to do your thing, but I don't really want to add to that sort of nonsensical behavior. But at a certain point, I do realize that because he's building all of these, I'm not going to be able to sell this lot. If one of the neighbors doesn't buy it, I'm almost going to be forced to sell it to him or never sell it at all. Now, I had no means of selling this lot. I own a bunch of lots. I use them like bank accounts. Whenever I might need some money, I go ahead and sell off a lot. And in my life, with the business I run, I purge money. So it's always good to have a big boost like that, raise the bank account up again. Now, the developer calls. He tells me he's interested in buying the lot. I tell him the stipulations. I tell him it's a tax sale lot. I tell him the price. He doesn't really bat an eye. And he tells me he's going to call me back. So I don't know why people are gossiping around there, but somehow the developer tells the neighbors, or the neighbors talk to the developer. A third neighbor calls me. So this guy calls me. He goes, look, I know what you want for the property. I think the price is a little inflated, but we need to box these developers out of here. I have a family. We're going to raise it. Will you sell it, and sell it now? So I told him my price. He said, no problem at all. I got no issue paying that. Now, at this point, the developers also called me back. I'm choosing not to respond to the developer because, see, I had a choice here to make. I could sell it to the guy at a good profit, right? The neighbor. Or I could tell the developer, hey, this is what the neighbor's going to give me. If you want to build all these extra units on my lot as well, you have to pay me, add another $5,000, $8,000 to the total, and then create some sort of a back and forth bidding war. But like I say, this isn't exactly my neighborhood. It is my area, and that felt like a scumbag thing to do. So I go meet the third neighbor over at the lot. When I do show up, the first neighbor who's been coming over to my house, who's having the real big issue, his wife's outside. Now, she is telling me everything. She seems panicked. She seemed like a sweet woman. She did not want any of this stuff, and rightfully so. I live in the middle of nowhere. My front yard is 1.5 acres. I couldn't imagine if my neighbor across the street sold out and there were just apartments there, essentially. So I kind of felt bad for her. So third neighbor comes walking up. Like I say, we walked the lot off. I said, man, if you want it, I brought all the title searches, everything on the lot. I said, if you want it, I have some quit claim deeds right here. All we got to do is get it notarized. It can be yours in about 20 minutes. But if you want it, pull the trigger. He agrees. So at this point, his wife comes up. And she is ecstatic. She's a pretty girl. She had a kid with her, nice looking family, the whole nine. She's like, you saved the day. We now don't have to move. We can raise our children here because they can't build anymore. Because it's essentially a tic-tac-toe of these properties. And them acquiring my property boxes that developer out of just making this whole corner of this little city of Alba 60 apartments and bringing in what is essentially going to be every meth head, crook, and criminal, because they're only charging like $400 or something a month, right? And I'm not saying everyone, but I mean, come on, low income housing brings bullshit, right? That's why you only live there if you have to. No one says one day I want to live in low income housing. So she comes up, gives me a hug, thanks me, starts crying. And me and her husband, we go to the bank. Everything was fine. I always have a rule. I don't accept checks. I don't do any of that nonsense. It's got to be cash just because I don't want to deal with anything coming back on me. Once the deal's done, I want to wipe my hands of it, be done with it. So he stuck true to his word. Seemed like a good guy. Some guy who ran his own company. He bought the lot. So this was 2 days ago, right? So what the city's about to do is they know that developer's going to be building more, they thought, on my lot. So they were going to take that little road and they were going to dead end it or sort of eminent domain one of the properties, which could have been mine, to where they could widen the road to stop for accidents. So they're about to go to the city council meeting, which might be today or tomorrow, with a little bit of the fuel that, hey, we now own this lot. This nonsense is going to stop right here. So let's come to an agreement on the road. Because I guess the developer didn't go through any of the proper channels, didn't do anything proper. And I can't really blame him. out where we live, there's no police. You can do whatever you want. I mean, if you want to be reckless, you can go out on your front porch and fire your gun into the air every night at 6 p.m. to let people know that the evening is here, and nothing, there would never be any consequences. So I can't blame the little guy, but I also can't blame these neighbors not wanting all this nonsense. So now the third neighbor owns the lot as soon as paperwork's filed, and apparently this ends that sort of gentrification that's trying to happen in this little city of Alba. The bottom line is, this is my area. I was born and raised here. And like I said, I will not add to gentrification. I will not add to any sort of bullshit. I was able to both do the right things, and I was able to make a 5-figure sell. Like I say, I could have made more starting a bidding war, but I was able to make a little money, and multiple families in this area were able to get peace of mind at the same time.
Non Apologetic
Nonsense.